Hello there, good morning, and welcome to my little arty corner of the internet. It's Monday morning, it's about 20 past 8. I've been awake for a little while, but haven't been with it. I'm not entirely sure I'm with it yet, but I know I've got a long, hearty day ahead of me, and I thought I'd start off by just doing a bit of personal art, and I've had breakfast. I wanted to show you this page in my sketchbook, because I've been drawing this over the past, 3-4 days on and off. I didn't do any drawing yesterday, but I did start adding colour and other stuff. I'll come back to that. There wasn't a video yesterday because A, I'm feeling the pressure of having to get all the templates for Adorable Dogs done. And I know that Sundays are my potchiest day because I have meetings all over the place and I catch up with a friend in America, and before you know it, the day's gone. But I did try in the morning, because I've been looking at medieval manuscripts, and you might see the influence in areas of this, because this has become, let's try this out. I'll explain more in a moment. And I woke up yesterday morning thinking, let me use alcohol markers because they've got such vibrant colours. They don't move with water-based media. Let's see if I can get these white lines drawn on them, fine gold lines, without thinking. And this is what I ended up with. And yesterday I was looking at it and I thought, what am I doing? But this morning I'm thinking, actually, for testing things out, this ain't too bad. So I drew in pencil some basic shapes. So I put some arches down, and I haven't done anything else here. I've just used alcohol markers. So rich jewel-like tones. So the blue, the green, red, very, very typical in a lot of medieval manuscripts, these lovely jewel bright colours. The green's a bit on the blue side. It should have been more this kind of green, but hey ho. And then I thought, well, what can I do? So square patterns are common. This one here, this one, but I'll come back to that because I wanted to see how gel pens would sit on top of the alcohol markers, particularly metallics and particularly whites, because it seems quite common to use white to pick out these patterns. So I wanted to try it to see, because the only way to understand, the only way to develop ideas, to try different things out, and for me to understand that, Angela, you really struggle with colour still, don't you? I do, it's true, is to do things. And as disheartened as I got with this, I also now, after a night's sleep and coming back to it, I can see I've actually gained some things. This one here works really nicely. The lighter colour, I'll come back in a moment, but with the pattern sketched out in black and then white put in some areas. I did put the yellowy green that's in the Moonlight, I think it's Cosmos set, in there, but it's hardly noticeable, but the white stands out. This was a jelly roll, and I dug out an 05 one, which is very fine and works beautifully on such detailed work. Over here, I also used, Uniball Signo, and over here I used the white jelly roll. This one is slightly brighter, this one is slightly less opaque, so more the colour shows through, but they still pick up the colour, which surprised me. And I think it may be because I didn't leave the alcohol ink to dry completely before I started drawing on it. I could have done with putting the colour down, putting it aside for a couple of hours and then coming back to it. Oh, yeah, this has got a deliberate squares pattern on it because I tried using alcohol blending, a blender pen, a clear colourless pen, because it bleaches the colour out, because I wanted some texture. I thought, okay, that kind of works. You'd have to go over it again and again, but, I know it works, but I just wanted to see. It's very subtle. It's more noticeable on the camera. This one here, it does look a bit strange, and yes, has got different colours. I tried using a Jelly Roll Gold. Sadly, the tip is just so broad, it's not going to work. It's brilliant for dotting, like here, and for filling in air. No, I didn't use the Jelly Roll for this. I used the Pen Touch, which is alcohol marker, and it's super, super metallic and shiny. But it's a bit patchy as well. I could do with going over it. And I used Pen Touch here. So I was quite disappointed with the jelly rolls, because on other media, they come out really, really white. I mean, this one it does. Oh, this one does, because this is the Sakura Souffle. So the bright white ones, the souffle, I can feel it now. I remember, I can feel the texture. So they always dry opaque, really opaque. The only issue is putting them down because they're colourless and they go down. Well, the white one is. So over here, I put a grid on of gold. Again, that gold has picked up the blue underneath. It must be something to do with, I don't know whether it's something to do with me not leaving the alcohol ink to dry or whether it is just showing up. That shouldn't be. Shouldn't have picked the colour up. I tried colouring these squares in with a red gel pen, Uniball Signal, and it's just turned like puke or dried blood. So that's no good. But I did put gold dots in and they work. The white worked. Again, that's that fine jelly roll. But I used a blue in the, yeah, I did. I used a pale blue moonlight in the squares with squares in and a white in the other. So, you know, here's the that very fine jelly roll. You can see how fine the lines are. This seems to be my favourite way of doing things at the moment. So this was just a disaster to my point of view, but it's from disasters or things that don't work out as you expect them to that you can go, oh, okay, that doesn't work. How can I make this work for me? So then I went on to this, and this is really a good example of bad colour choices and not thinking. I love the motifs, I have to say that. I love the gold here, brilliant. White dots up the middle, wish I'd done them in gold, but I haven't got a big enough difference in colour between the centre of these and the outside. Alcohol ink again. And I thought if I did all of these in one colour, the outside square, I would just end up with a lot of yellow there. And so I opted for alternates and I wasn't very happy. I had thought about doing things around here. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I thought to break up these colours, I'd put like a checkerboard pattern in. Yeah, right. Dots of gold. But the white does, you know, sit on top. It does show up. But I just haven't used big enough contrasting colours. I keep telling you, I struggle with colour. Monochrome is definitely the way to go. So then, this is I'd done about 6 different videos yesterday. I recorded 6 different ones. And in the end, I've just deleted them because I wasn't going to share all of that with you because I was getting really, really hard on myself. Because I'm trying to do something that I'm not familiar with. So I thought, right, let's go to this sketchbook, to this drawing I've been doing. And let me add some colour to some places and see what happens. And let me just keep it, you know, basically monochrome, each or, you know, just a couple of different colours. So I went for blues, sort of like, what's the name of them? I've got them here. These are the Arteza ones. So one's called Hawaiian blue, the other is beach blue, not bleach blue, beach blue. And the beach blue is the lighter colour, the Hawaiian blue is the darker one. And this really works nicely here because even though they haven't blended well along the edge, this is sketchbook paper. It's a mare with alcohol inks, they just bleed. But for my purpose, it's a sketchbook, so it's fine. And the white that I filled these little patterns in with does actually stand out, not as much as I'd like it to. I didn't fill them entirely, I put white lines in there, sort of like central veins on a leaf, and it does show up. This one, I just wanted to try things out just to see how I could make things work. It's getting my head round where do I put colours. So I put this dark colour, which is blackberry blue. Again, it's an Arteza Everblend. And it's a lovely colour, but it's not blue, it's purple. Blackberry blue? Don't ask. This is lovely. It's blackberry blue I put round the edge, and I put sweet pea purple in the middle. And they didn't blend very well because they are a big difference in shade apart, and it's such a small area. And I couldn't keep going back and blending back and forth because I'd have a paper full of the colour because it was bleeding out so much. But I used that white gel pen to put this Zentangle pattern in, which is Doodah. and that's worked really nicely. I'm surprised how lovely that is. This one I coloured all over with, just about, except for these pointy bits, with that sweet pea purple, and that colour there is vintage yellow, and it's actually really quite nice. It's not so much in your face a yellow. It is a yellow red, but it's really quite nice. And I had put that colour in these dots. Oh no, I'd put white in the dots I'd drawn in ink, but I went back and put gold in them, and then used a white gel pen to put little triplets of dots around and single dots as well, just to add interest to that, almost like a starry sky around the you know, the tiles on the top of a roof. I can't remember what they're called, but the ones that can be ornate and patterned, not finials, because they finish off the corners of roofs, but in between, ridge tiles. There you are, ridge tiles. So a bit like that, with the sort of like pale night sky with the sun's just coming out. Sun's just coming out, moon's coming out. So that's showing me that this could work. I'm not entirely sure about my colour choices. I have no idea what goes through my head when I pick colours out and combine them sometimes. It seems to work not so bad when I do things digitally, but when I work traditional media, it just never feels right. And these, I thought, let's have a go down here. And I've got, and I learnt from the previous one I showed you, and I used the blackberry purple, and that would be Hawaiian blue in the middle. The blackberry purple's too dark, really, but as an idea of, you know, proof of concept, or, you know, just having a look, it worked quite nicely because I put white dots around the edge. But part of me wishes that I'd used gold dots, but I wouldn't have got gold dots from the Jelly Roll pen small enough to pop there, or any other gold pen I've got. Here I put vintage gold and cream pearl down, so the vintage yellow, sorry, is a darker tone, so it's darker at the edges and lighter there, and I put dots of Jelly Roll over, and that actually works really nicely. The dots I really like, rather than the solid line of gold. I think it's because with gel pens and paints, I'm not very good at getting even coverage, and this, when it's deliberately broken up, it becomes an added texture and pattern. So I like dots so much. So that was quite nice. And I kept track here of what I was using, just so that if I clear everything away, I can, and decide to come back and use the same colours, I can. I'm keeping this as it is. I mean, it did bleed through a little bit through the back. I've got some just printer paper underneath to stop it marking the sheet underneath. But I just thought, this is just, it's been an experiment, and it's looking at things, and you may be able to spot there are lots of patterns here that I've taken inspiration from medieval manuscripts, and I've only looked at a couple, and not entire manuscripts, just pages, photographs, what I can find, or what I've been browsing through Pinterest and places like that. But they're so lovely, and when you look at them, they're not actually that hard to deconstruct and to work out how they work. This is a bit more complicated perhaps than, say, this one here. This one's a bit more complicated, this one's not. I did simplify this a bit as well, but yeah. So I thought this morning, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Oh God, I am. Oh, that's better. There'll be another one now, no doubt. But I thought I'd go back, not so much with this, perhaps I'll use some of these ideas, but I thought I'd go back to working on a tile, because I made some tiles last week, coloured some tiles, paper tiles, 4-inch square tiles, because I'm still not sure what to do with the well one I've already done. I'm not at all sure. So I thought I'd work on those. So I'm going to readjust my camera and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, and here I am back. This is one of the 4-inch tiles that I coloured last week with distress inks and using, well, I didn't use stencils, I used stamps. So just in case you're interested, I wrote the colours that I used on the back of these. I used brush corduroy, which I put down as a very pale layer as a background, and I used for the, no, I didn't use it for the edging. Then I added speckled egg, which is a sort of bluey colour. It's speckled egg, it's robin's egg blue almost, but a bit more toned down. Stormy Sky, which is a lovely grey blue, and I used that to stamp the writing on. So the writing is Stormy Sky. You might be able to make out hints of blues around here, which is speckled egg. The brownish colour in the background is brush corduroy, and around the edge I used vintage photo to edge this. So just in case. And I did use stamps. I used the script stamp is from a company called Indigo Blue, and I didn't go out and buy them. They've been in my stash from the time I was experimenting with card making and so on. We had a fantastic craft shop not far from me. It was called Dandelion, and it's spelled Dandy, D-A-N-D-Y, and Lion, and if I remember rightly, and they were amazing. It was a shop set up by female crafters who'd met while they were working in another shop and thought they could do it on their own, and it really was fantabulous. And I just thought that it would be lovely. Oh, I just got involved in it, so I didn't think anything. I just sort of saw these things and started working out how to use them and trying them out. I dabbled in card making and mixed media, and so I ended up with a lot of stuff in my stash. I've still got a die cutting machine, but I gave my old die cutting machine and dies and lots of stamps and other stuff away to somebody who was into crafting, because I thought I'm never going to use this anymore. And suddenly I decided I needed a die cutting machine, but I haven't got any 4-inch square dies. So it's on my list eventually, perhaps, to get some, because it makes, to be honest with you, they're just as quick to cut them out with a paper trimmer. And yes, I have paper trimmers. Well, I've got two. I've got one I much prefer. I got one of the big metal ones that's a pain to use, you know, with a big bar on the top, and it's only got a short platform, so it's not easy to catch. Anyway, so I thought that it would be, so I had these things. I kept some of them back from the stash, didn't give everything to this person. Right, I've got that a bit too high up, so we'll just move that down a bit. And so I did keep some things that I could make use of, that I thought would be useful to me. Textural stamps and the like, you know? So things that would make sense to me. So what I'm going to do here, I've put a pencil grid in. I am going to, I'll leave the pencil lines in for a moment because I don't know whether I want to put a pen line in there yet, but I am going to do well again. And I'm going to do my favourite way of putting the dots in the middle, which is to have my blobs with, you know, border around them and aura around them, if we're talking Zentangle terms. I just think it's just what I like. It appears in my artwork. So I'm going to do well, and I'm going to do it in the mirror, what I call the mirrored version. So this one will go down like this, as will that one opposite, so they mirror each other. So as I'm looking at it, this is like a letter D and this one's like a number 6. And I'm going to do the same with these two, because they will be mirrored to this. Oh gosh, yes, that's right. as I confuse myself. Put a dot where I didn't want a dot, but it'll be fine. So that's set up. That's set up how I want to create these lines going out, and I'm going to use this the grid I've drawn in as my guide for where these lines will go and stop, because I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do next with them. I'm beginning to think I'm going to have to make a box or a bag with sort of like media I could use in there, so I can pick them out at random or shuffle through to remind myself of things that I enjoy doing. I'll tell you more in a moment. Okay, so this one goes there, and we have this one going here. So yeah, I am going to draw the border around this. It looks weird if I don't put it that way, so. But I am not going to draw the pencil lines inside in ink. I'm going to leave this pattern as it is here. There may very well be method in my madness eventually. And I'm also going to just aura around this, create a border around this central one. One thing I've picked up from I say, you know, they say it in Zentangle all the time, and I am an absolute perfectionist, or I can be, which is why it's taken me so long to draw or to ink in the Adorable Dogs templates, because I'm doing it digitally. So when I put a line down, I don't have to commit to that line. I can go back and edit it, so I'm being a bit of a pain in myself. So that's quite nice. That's got my favourite shapes in there. It's got these four in the middle, my favourites, and I've got these other ones on the outside. So that's quite nice. And I am going to pop a border around this. And yep, I am drawing outside these lines because I do want the border to be a little bit wider than it is, just a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'll decide if I double that edge up. Okay, next job, I am going to bring out these central shapes, and I am going to use this kind of line. I am. I'll try not to twist and turn this too much, but it's hard not to, given that it really is easier to turn the page round when I'm drawing such big lines, and these for me are big lines. You can see my sketchbook, I tend to draw extremely smallly when it's my own personal art, and big swooping lines aren't so easy for me to do. When I'm working on the computer screen digitally, I mean, I've got a huge computer screen. It's something like, I don't know, is it 24 inches or 27? Something like that, something stupid. So huge. It's bigger than A3. It's enormous. So I can zoom in and suddenly I've got these huge lines to create. And I do find myself using the whole of my arm, which is something I never ever thought I'd do. Now that does look a bit odd with just those middle ones done. So guess what? I'm going to have to do these outside ones. Now, there is a reason why I'm doing this. I want to fill these inner spaces with colour. And I've just realised one of the things I wanted to do was to get the... No, I know, it's okay. I was just thinking about using a different alcohol ink colour because I've got the pens I was using in my sketchbook. down on the desk still. So I just haven't tidied them away yet. I was going to do that before I settle to work in a little while. That looks better. That looks more patternish, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do, I've got my lock on, have I? I don't think so. Okay, where's the colour? I'm going to use the Hawaiian blue, I think, and I'm going to colour. Oh, before I do that though, with alcohol inks, the pencil becomes stuck inside them and you can't erase it afterwards, so, and it will show up. So I just need to get rid of the pencil lines before I do anything else. Wibbly wobbly. There we go. Job done. Job's a good one. Okie dokes. I'm thinking I actually will use the lighter blue because there is a big enough difference between them. So this is beach blue. And what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do all of these. I'm not going to bore you with this. I'm just going to do a couple with you. I've never used alcohol markers before, they're fab. But to get them to blend, you first have to saturate the paper with ink if you want them to blend well and easily. So I put the lighter colour down first and the darker colour second, and then I'll go back and add the lighter colour over where they meet, saturating the paper even more. And down there, and you get a nice blend. God, it looks garish on the screen. It's nowhere near this bright. So again, this is the lighter one. It is beginning to bleed sideways, but I'm not worried too much about that. This will happen on most paper that isn't a marker paper. I'm using mixed media paper here, so I expect to get some bleeding out of the lines, but I also know I can deal with that. So here I am going back from the edge and adding lots of the lighter colour to get these to blend. I prefer to do it light to dark, I think, to begin with. But I knew there was going to be feathering out of this, spreading of this, so I chose to put the light colour down part way down rather than colour it all in. So I'm going to carry on doing that. I think everybody's got their own way of working with them. I know there are artists who prefer to start dark and blend it out with the lighter colours, and then they go back. You know, they work from dark to medium to light, and then light, medium, dark to layer everything up. I'm just using two colours here. Again, it's from looking at the medieval manuscripts, and you colour in quite a simple way, and shadow. And they have no sense of perspective. It wasn't until Dürer, I think it was, developed, understood the idea of perspective and foreshortening, that things changed. You look at drawings where you've got people in buildings, and the people are often bigger than the buildings, and yet they're right next to the building. It's because there wasn't that concept or that need to draw things as if they were photographs, I suppose. And perhaps it was also because the scribes and so on, they draw what came into their heads without any any idea of that foreshortening or of perspective and relative sizes as well. So that's going to work quite nicely. I'm going to leave that there because I will come back and that's it. Put the right cap on the right pen. Always a good idea. So that works, that's lovely. They look so jewel bright and so fluorescent on the screen, and it's not really. But I want to add pattern in here. You see, ideally I would leave this now until everything had dried up. But I'm not going to, am I? Because my time for this today is relatively limited. So I'm reaching over for the O5 jelly roll. And I will see, how can I deal with these? I want to keep the fan shape. Actually, I am going to use black. I've decided that I want to use black on top of this. So I'm going to draw roughly equal in all, about the same way up. It's not critical if they're a little bit different because the shapes are a little bit different. A little less than halfway up. So I've got these lovely shapes here, and I am going to darken them in the bottom. So, like so. Even though yesterday I had what I felt was a complete disastrous time, where I wasn't really getting what I wanted, the effects I wanted, and basically it's because, you know, the media I was using wasn't quite what I needed to do things with. I have got some acrylic inks here, but I don't have any dip pens, or at least I can't find my dip pens anywhere. So I had a look online and I've ordered some that should arrive today, which means as soon as they arrive, suddenly all the acrylic inks, the metallic acrylic inks and dip pens will suddenly appear as if by magic from the nether regions of my stash. I kid you not, it's going to happen. I'm also going to use a pencil again on top of the alcohol ink because this should erase nicely. And I'm going to put this border there, and I do want to pencil it in, and I'm going to use a really simple border pattern. That I found in a medieval manuscript. And I'm starting by putting, oh gosh, that went wrong on this one because I didn't want to split them into two, I want to split them into three. Yeah, it'd be fine. Start in the middle. It'll be what it is. And that one just seems like it's shorter. And I've created quite small dots here. You can make them a bit bigger. But let's extend them down so we've got lines connecting them back to the arch. And then instead of joining them with a straight line, join these dots. And these dots need to be visible, I think, for it to work nicely. The dots are what make it, really. As I'm using an O1, everything seems to be smaller than it needs to be. So again, draw these lines in first. So those are just way too fine in comparison to those, but again, this again is just an experiment. It's just for me to try something out or some things out and see if I can get everything to, or get things to work in a way I'd like them to. But these are a bit uneven here, but no doubt when I join them, And you know what I've done with, oh no, you know what I've done? I was going to do the border around the outside, going that way. Oh God. Oh well, it is what it is. So instead of the lines going back towards the central point, I was going to have them going away and have an open area here, but it's all right. This was perhaps meant to be. So, lovely scallop. And you can do that without those dots, but those dots are so lovely. They just added something to it, and I just thought, oh, what a brilliant idea. Put the dots in and then join the dots. It's dot to dot time. Okay, and then this outside edge, I am going to put a very fine aura around the edge. And I'm afraid you're going to have to wait until tomorrow most probably to see if I manage to use a dip pen and ink to put a very fine gold line inside this. I was talking about medieval manuscripts and sort of like looking at them. As you look at the page, you think how beautiful, how amazing this is. And it's only when you really zoom in close, you go, hang on, that's a bit wonky. Oh no, they've missed that. Oh no, they made a mistake there. They miscopied the pattern and so on. And you think, those lines are a bit wobbly. Those don't match up. Well, they're different thicknesses. And it's only when you look in that there, you notice those things. And so I'm going to have to learn to step back from work that I do and work out that it's fine for things to be all a little bit wibbly wobbly and, you know, perhaps imperfect in their perfection, you know, perfectly imperfect. So on these ones, I'm so tempted to do golds. That's the problem. I've got white in my hand because these areas are big enough for me to put some gold dots in. And I think gold dots would actually look quite nice there, perhaps. If I do that, this is the reason why I'm thinking about, I need a list of media I like to use and things I like to do with them because I forget about things. A humble, fine biro. I kid you not, because I'm going to add shadow with this shading. I could use the alcohol pens, but I want some texture. So I'm using this very, very lightly. I'm literally flicking it so that the lines get thinner and lighter the further away they go from this base line. I could have done this before I add the alcohol ink, but biro ink is oil-based, alcohol inks are alcohol-based, and alcohol dissolves oil, and you get a bit of a mess. Although it can be a very pretty mess, but it also clogs up the nibs on the brushes. So I can heartily recommend you looking at medieval manuscripts, the illuminated manuscripts, to see how pattern and forms are used, and texture, and how simple patterns can give this amazing amazing texture, richness to the designs. I'm flicking this towards me. I started off flicking away from me, and you might be able to see the differences. This is much finer. These ones are a bit more heavy-handed, but it is what it is. So that instantly puts some shadow in. A humble biro. These also aren't affected by water. So if I wanted to use water-soluble media with them, I can, either before or after, because they will resist and repel water, which is fab. Now these ones, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use the biro just to add a bit of shadow to this. Just so that those little areas there just stick up. And in hindsight, I most probably could have got away with just using the paler colour here, but I actually quite like having that difference going on. Tell you what I do need to do. I've got pencil marks of my here, so just remove those, hopefully without smudging the biro. If I do, it's no big problem, I don't think. Okay, let's do these ones. I wanted to flick from underneath these up, I think. The humble biro is much overlooked, I think, as an artistic tool. I've used it for drawing, sketching. In the past year, an awful lot, or in the past few months at times. But I'd forgotten about it until this morning, and suddenly it popped into my head. I wonder what would happen if. And so you have to go with the, oh, I wonder what will happen if moments. You do need quite a light hand for this. And I'm quite heavy-handed. So, alcohol ink, black fly liner, and a humble biro, and I get to this point. And this now is my quandary, because I've got these lovely areas here, and do I put gold or do I put white on? And I actually think I'm going to put white, and I am going to scribble off on my sketchbook just to see if I can get this to work. And I think I'm just going to pop down the centre. And as this is no 5, it really does make really lovely and small white dots. This isn't showing up very well on the camera. They're a lot brighter to my eye, which is the problem with using cameras. So I'm starting with a bigger dot, and allowing them to get smaller and almost fade away as we go down. But I am putting them over that biro shading because I want them to stand out. The biro shading is part of the background. And what this will do is add those lovely lighter highlights. Almost like each of these petal shapes are curving upwards towards the middle. So it helps to bring that out. A bit different. And if I'm honest, and I like to be honest, I've been working with graphite for a little while now, adding shadow with it, or chalk pastels, and I much prefer the biro. A, because it's a clearer colour, it's black. I'm not smudging it. It doesn't look mucky. Like graphite can often look very mucky and dirty to me. So there we are, there's that. Now, I've got these sections around here to do. Now, I could choose to do them in colour, and I'm sort of tempted to do that. The problem is I'll end up with an expanse of that kind of colour. So I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with them. Part of me thinks these should have been done in colour and the middle bit should have been done perhaps in gold, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with these here yet. Notice I say yet. Part of me thinks it might have been better to have a finer border here. I could fill it in with gold, but then I'd lose, it would just be gold with these little bits in. So I really don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me thinks it would be quite nice, that's no one, would be quite nice if I just move this, it's just put a finer border in there, or even if I was to, I don't know, I just don't know what to do. And so that means on this point I'm going to leave this where it is. The next time you see this, I will have added colour to all of these sections. I think I'll be doing them in exactly the same way, same colour scheme, and I will hopefully have had the metallic inks, so I'll be able to decide what to do. I think I do know what I'd like to do. I think I'd like to colour them in yellow and put those gold dots on. So I'm going to use the 2 yellows again. I'll do just one of them for now, very quickly. There we are. So I'm putting the, I want to call it opal, but it's not opal. What's it called? Cream pearl. So why I insist on trying to call it opal pearl is beyond me. And the vintage yellow. But really, really, really a simple blend. That actually will work nicely, I think, because it means that I've got a variation in colour around each of these shapes. Again, I'm just going to blend them into each other. Don't need to blend it all the way along, just a bit, and perhaps do one on the other side. Yes, this will work because, I'll tell you why, I'll show you why quickly in a moment. They don't want these to dry before I have a chance to blend them in. There we are. I think I've made almost the right decision here, I think. I've got some overspill here, but this colour will blend it out a bit, and of course what I'm going to do will disguise it completely. So here is going to be where the darker colour is at the point. So I'm going to pop this on the other way very quickly. And the lighter colour, just checking I've got them the right way round, because I can be a complete idiot like this as well. You go, oh, no, can't believe I did that. It can be almost irredeemable with alcohol ink, but the blender can come in useful, because the blender, the colours blender, can be used, it acts not as a blender, it's more of a bleacher, but it does tend to spread the ink out so that it spreads out until it's almost pale, so it's a bit of a pain to use. So very quickly. So these look quite dark now, but I know they will dry back a bit. But there is a difference, because where the points are darker, the tops are lighter. That's because my head was thinking in one colour instead of in two, so there will be that kind of difference there. And again, I can pick this out or help this along perhaps. I could use a slightly darker yellow at the tips. So let me stand up, creak around a moment. Excuse me a mo. Let's have a look. This is sunflower yellow. That must probably work, hopefully. At the points, let's just pop that on. So I really do need to use 3 colours here. This feels really dry, this one. This probably isn't. Like that, and then I will get the, that's the vintage yellow, and just blend it out. No, it's not that it's dry, it's that I haven't used the sunflower yellow, so the tips haven't been softened with use. So that will help. And then when I put, well, it will be gold dots around here. I will use the jelly roll. Start at the top one. These dots will sit on top of the colour. And they do take a while to dry on top of alcohol ink, it's surprising. take them much longer than they would on paper. As the alcohol changes, I guess there's a chemical reaction with the paper in some way. I don't know what it does. There we go. And then these just break up that expanse of colour. It adds texture to it. And that lovely bit of shine. Again, you know, a lot of these illuminated manuscripts, gold is made use of in the form of gold leaf and gold paint, but quite sparingly in some cases, but used for dots and highlights. So dotting things would make it go a lot further, I suppose. So that, just tilt it, hopefully you'll see. I hate trying to get a shimmer on paper, so it's there, and it just breaks up that big block of colour, adding more pattern and texture and interest. So I definitely will leave that here for today. I will finish this section, and then tomorrow we'll have a look at this border, hopefully, though tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be crazy days. I've got an optician's appointment tomorrow, and Wednesday I get my third dose of COVID vaccine, so I could be ill. So I don't know what's going to happen. But if I don't post a video, don't give up on me. It just means that everything else has got on top of me. Life has got on top of me. So we'll just have to see how things go. So for now, take care of yourselves. Hope you've enjoyed this. A look at what work I'm doing, my disasters, just to show that we all do. Now, don't show everything that's perfect on here. I don't believe in doing that. I think you need to see how, I think seeing how people develop ideas or developing their artistic style or trying out new things is important, because it may not work, but it leads you down a path perhaps you hadn't thought of. And I still am working on this. It's always a work in progress. This is turning out okay. I think it'll be fine. The ballpoint pen, I have to say, remembering that it's a stroke of genius, I think I need to put it in these bits down the bottom here. You know, these little bits as well, perhaps, just to add some extra contrast there, perhaps, because it's all looking a bit, I was going to finish, wasn't I? See? It's what happens when I start talking. Just hints there. You can see this one. It just feathers that black out from that solid black at the bottom, just that little bit, and fades into that blue, which adds quite a nice touch, I think. There we are. So, welcome to my weird world. So, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when I manage to get the next one done. So bear with me, please. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye.